So this is my attempt to show how to edit a fursuit head base in 3DCoatPrint. So this application is available for free. It's a exceedingly powerful, if not also exceedingly complex 3D editor. It's available for free, so you can just download it. It has a lot of sculpting capabilities. It just has a lot of meshing, like really complex and powerful mesh capabilities. It's a tool that I use frequently. Um, and this particular version is specifically designed for printing. Their primary application is designed to do pretty much every part of a 3D workflow. I like this tool a lot. Their developers are very responsive to fixing issues that you have. So as you use this, like email them if you have problems or issues, or hit their forums up, and generally if it's a bug, they'll fix it really quickly. Okay, so this is what it looks like when it first opens. It's kind of like jumping into the cockpit of a 747. It's very overwhelming. Um, so I'm going to go through the whole process of starting something. So I just ignore this because the way we're using it, it doesn't matter for printing. So you're going to see that in this application, it's very dialog box happy. It loves to show you dialog boxes. The trick is to not get frustrated or upset with the amount of dialog boxes that it's going to shove in your face all the time. So just cancel out of this. All right. So on the left side here are all of your tools, okay? And there are a lot of tools. This application is very powerful. And when you click on a tool, you will get probably a new dialog box, okay? I just click them away. And this dialog box usually shows you things about the tool and what it can do. And these look very overwhelming. I will walk through some of them as we get there. There's a lot of them that I just don't even bother. Like some of these start to just have way too many options to make sense to. I have no idea what they do, and it's just I ignore it for the most part. I just use the default modes on it. Um, so tools on the left hand side, and then at the top, what you have is you have brush options. That will change the tools to small size tools. I'm going to go back to wherever I was here if I can ever find it again. Then so that changes the way the tools are displayed. This is your brush options for each tool. So I'll end up using different brushes through this. I'll try to explain why I'm doing what with whatever brushes. You can invert the tools. I think you invert them holding down Shift or Alt or Control, or I don't know. I just invert them and it works. No idea what soft scrape is. This is the radius for the tool brush. So let's say, for instance, you wanted to just insert a new primitive. We're going to start here. And when you add a primitive, it has this dialog box that shows up. And the most important thing that I look at usually here is what do I want to do with the primitive? So when you add it to a scene, you can decide how you want to boolean it into other things. So let's just add that real quick, and I will zoom in. And now it's added. It's in our scene tree over here. So that's kind of how the basics of the dialog boxes work here. There's a bunch of other stuff in here, and as you become like more familiar with the application, you'll start to realize some of these things are really important. So there's just a whole lot of things this app does. I will say it is not always stable. It does crash fairly frequently. So I would definitely save your work as you're working on things. I was talking about the brushes there. So let's see here. Are we in voxel mode? And I'll talk about that in a second. Build here. Okay, so here are the brushes. So if I click on one, that's going to be a hard brush. And it has this awesome feature where you right click and drag to change the brush size. Or you can change it in the dialog box up here by doing this. So I'm forever changing it there. And then if you go, and it's drag left to right to change the brush side, and up and down to change the impact the brush has. So if I drag left to right, then I can change the size, and now I can just start painting with this. These brushes here allow me to do things like, well, I guess this one doesn't, but change how the brushes interact with things. And you'll see that I use this a lot. Yeah, so okay, so this is allowing me to draw a polyline on the surface and then extrude only that polyline. So for example, if I wanted to draw a rectangle on the surface of this, If I want to rotate while I'm in the middle of using these draw tools, so now I can just draw a rectangle here, and it's just going to put a rectangle there. So that's what the brushes here do. On the right-hand side, I have no idea what this is. These are the actual brushes that we can use to draw with. So if we wanted to go ahead and change the texture of our brush, this is the brush window here. I guess there's brush parameters if they're there. This is how we want the thing that we're working on to look like. So whatever's selected in the sculpt tree, I can just change the material here, and that's what I get. So I could sculpt with this, I could sculpt with this, I could sculpt with this. There's a whole bunch of additional stuff in there. I have no idea what a lot of this does. This is the curves tree. We're going to end up using that later. And this is the sculpt tree. So this is kind of like the list of all of your items. Most of the complex actions that I use most frequently in 3D Coat are available here. So if you want to do something like export this object to OBJ, that's where you do it. Select export object, and I get, what type of object do I want to export. So this is where you do your exporting, is you select and right click on that. If you want to do Boolean operations, it's not particularly well organized, but they are down here. So you can say subtract from, copy and subtract from. This is one I pushed them for because I was doing a lot of copy and subtract from. So this is a feature that I actually pestered them until they added. But the two that I use a lot when working on bases are fill voids and close invisible hulls. So these help clean up meshes as we're working on them. So the next thing to know about 3D Coat is it does both voxel sculpting and surface or like regular wireframe sculpting. So if I turn on, I'm going to hit W here, and that's going to show this. This is a voxel mesh, meaning that it's effectively made of little pixels, and then it wraps a mesh around it. So the advantage of voxel meshes is they're pretty fantastic. What 3D Coat does is it makes you make a explicit decision about how you want to work with a mesh. So this is a voxel mesh. So imagine that inside of here, each of these squares that you can just barely see here is represented with like a single pixel. So like that little square there, let's see if I can drag that down. That little square there is a pixel underneath it. And this whole thing is just filled with pixels or sand, right? And all it's doing is wrapping a wireframe around it. The advantage of voxel is that you can create watertight meshes that are just not surface meshes. And the disadvantage of them is they're resolution dependent. So in 3D Coat, I can come down here and I can say, I want to change, I want to resample this or change the density of pixels in this. So I can say I want to go really dense, and now I have a much denser amount of pixels. The disadvantage of this is that as those become denser, and this works very similar to Nomad Sculpt with its voxel tools, but as those become denser, my tools as I'm sculpting with things become less capable of making large changes. But they allow you to capture more detail. So you might want to work really quickly by turning down the resolution. So if I come back down here and I change so now I've increased the resolution. I did res plus, which is not what I wanted. So Control Z that. So another thing that 3D Coat is very good at is working with exceedingly complex, dense meshes. So let's say I turn that down now, and this is what my mesh looks like. So I can sculpt really quickly here. It's quick to do this on my computer. But the disadvantage is that I don't have much resolution, so I'm kind of stuck with what I got. But if I wanted to change this to and the tools here are set up so that there's voxel tools here. So these tools work on voxels, and then there's surface tools, and these work on regular meshes, like meshes that are not voxelized. So if I want to change this, it's a voxel mesh, and I know this because of this V right here. And the 1x tells me the resolution or density of it. So if I come back here and I hit res plus, I will see that's now 2x. So that tells me it's denser resolution, 4x, etc., 8x. If I wanted to change this to a surface mesh, so a regular wireframe mesh, I just click on the V. and now it is no longer a voxel. It might look like a voxel, but that is because I converted it from a voxel to a surface mesh. When I do this, my voxel tools go away here. So you'll see now I'm just left with some surface tools here. So I can still do manipulation to this. It's hard to see that, but I can still do manipulation like this. And by the way, the other reason to use the surface tools is if you want super high detail on stuff. Generally for doing fursuit work, you don't really need super high detail. You just want it to work. Okay, so that's the basics of this this tool, and surface and voxel. I will almost always works in voxel unless I have to convert it to surface for some reason. If I wanted to retopo this, there is 3D Coat has kind of powerful retopo tools. You can go to auto retopo, and that will then change the mesh, and it's going to drive you through a bunch of dialog boxes, and it's going to sit here and try to optimize this mesh to be a game asset. For the case of working with Pandafold, this does not really matter very much. But you can see this no longer looks like it's voxelized. It is something else now. And then I'm not exactly sure why it's showing me this blue mesh. In the full application, this would make a lot of sense. In this cut down version of 3DCoatPrint, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but hey, that's what it is. Okay. So if I wanted to add to this, I can come back up here to primitives, and I can select from the primitives up here, and I can just start adding a primitive here. So let's see. I guess I can't. Let's go back to voxelize. Yeah, okay. So now I'm in this place where I think I have experienced a bug because it's showing me something that I'm not sure what it's doing here. Let's see what happens if I turn off the visibility of that. Yeah, so this is a layer 0, curves, sculpt model splines. Well, I guess I'm restarting that. The retopo did not do what I expected. So this is the nature of 3D Coat. Frequently times you will get into some place where you're like, okay, I don't know how to recover this. I'm just going to do a new on this and start from scratch. Okay, so we're back to here. I was going to show how to add the primitives. So now let's see here. How am I in this place where I cannot get this to work? All right, primitives. I don't see this. Okay. Well, this is very special. New. Don't save. Okay, so I'm just going to restart this because I have no idea what place I've gotten into. All right, so we're back here with our mini dialog boxes we're going to go through. Okay, so now we're back to this sphere. This is just the nature of like my relatively naive understanding of how to work with 3D Coat. Render tools, 3D print, simplest. Oh, okay. I have no idea what, wow. Okay, so I have no idea what these, I'm assuming that you can do some renders inside of this version of it, and that there's probably a simple way to work with stuff is what it's trying to tell me. All right, so we're back to our primitives. I can click on a primitive and say add, and I'll get a new voxel primitive. And if I want to do that again, and it's just going to keep, notice it isn't creating new objects, it's adding them to the same one. So this is how you could say, for example, construct things in 3D Coat, is you could just sit here and do this level of voxel construction, or primitives construction, I should say. If you want to create a new object here, you either have to do plus to create it underneath, then select it, and then add things to that. Or alternatively, what you have to do is do the plus down here, and that will create it at the root level. So there's, I have many hours have been spent in this program. I've spent many hours in this, written a lot of Python code for it, because it's just got such a powerful voxel engine. Okay. So that is the very basics of 3D Coat. When you want to import something, import here. Let's go new, and we'll do this a little bit more. Don't save. Close this. Cancel. Okay. So now we're going to go to import. We're going to import an object. We'll start here. All right. So so first off, this mesh has some problems. That's one of the reasons I'm doing this tutorial, is so that this is a customer's mesh, and they're having problems getting it sorted out. So when you first import something, 3D Coat is asking you where you want to place it, and that is what you're seeing there. And then it's going to show up here in the sculpt tree. So this is telling me it's imported this, and it is a surface mesh. I think the reason why it looks so broken is the normals on it are flipped. So effectively, it would be showing the inside. It is doing this. You can see it. The inside is flipped. Let's see if we can go ahead and convert that into a voxel. And it's going to ask how many. And now we have this voxel representation. That looks okay. It may not be enough, but it's a starting point. And this is what I think this mesh looked like in Nomad. I know this is what this mesh looked like in Nomad Sculpt because the voxels weren't inverted on it. But let's convert that again, and let's use a higher resolution on it. The reason I did that is because I was getting these weird little serrated edges and stuff. And I just wanted to make sure it wasn't full of holes. Like you can kind of see here. Let's see if that makes it easier to see the holes. It doesn't really. All right, so this is how you import stuff. If I wanted to export this after I'm done with it, it would just be export. Now, let's say, for instance, I wanted to, I have no idea what I've done here. Let's say, for instance, I wanted to convert this into a voxelized mesh. These holes here, for Pandafold's purposes, are not going to be what we want. So I could try to fill them, and I could try to clean that up. And the way I would do that typically is there is a fill tool here. And if you mouse over it and leave it, so this will try to fill the holes in the surface, okay? So you can use this here and kind of click in this area here. Now earlier I said the voxel resolution was very high. I had to put it at like 5 million. So that's why this tool is not doing a whole lot right now. But the problem is if I go ahead and I turn the voxel resolution down on this, come back down here to resample, then I will get additional holes. So let's go down to like 190. So you'll see this turned full of holes because there's not enough resolution to represent it. So if you think about like, you can have only something that's maybe 10 millimeters each for each pixel, it's just not dense enough to represent it. All right, so I'm not going to necessarily go through and do this on this whole process here, but you could sit here and fill the hole this way, and eventually you'll get to the point where, and I'm going to use a stylus to do this because it's going to be much quicker. Eventually you could get here and fill all of these holes. One moment. I guess I'm not using a stylus. I have managed to set it up with a cord that's too short. Okay. So I could sit here and fill all of the holes in this. I guess I'll go ahead and do this just for example purposes. So come in here, fill the hole. And now that I've done this, let's say, for instance, I wanted to make this mesh symmetrical because I haven't done that over here. The next thing to know about with 3D Coat is symmetry. I guess it's up here. Symmetry, I just hit the S button all the time to turn this on, enable symmetry, and then it will show us which axis. So as I click through these, you'll see which axis it's showing us. So in this case, I wanted X axis symmetry, and then it's going to ask me how I want the symmetry set up. So first off, it's enable symmetry, whether or not I want to see the plane or not, I do. The type of symmetry. So this has very powerful symmetry tools. I am just going to use the XYZ mirror. And then how do I want to define the symmetry? And so first off, you'll notice for this model, it is not centered. So I think, let's try 10. That didn't change anything. Probably because it's moving in the wrong axis. All right, so that's the one I want. I don't think you can drag on these. So all of the units, at least out of the box in 3D Coat, are millimeters, which is really nice. All right, so let's say that that was precisely what we wanted with symmetry. I can hit, so to manipulate the views in 3D Coat, so this is perspective, you can go to orthographic by hitting 5, and then the other number keys will let you jump. So that looks fairly centered there. So now that I have that symmetry set up, I'm going to go to geometry and I'm going to say sim copy. That's going to copy one side, the last side that I used a tool on, to the other side. And this way I'm not having to fill holes in both. Now, if I leave symmetry on like it is right now, I could just use the tools and it will expand on both. So let me get a thick layer there. Yeah, so you can see it's doing the same thing on both sides here. Okay, so that is the basics of working with 3D Coat. What else do you need to know? So another powerful capability that, and this is the same with Nomad Sculpt, and this tool is used a lot to do a lot of like this sequence here. Let's see if I can find it. The freeze tools. So the freeze tools will let you freeze an area of the geometry, and this is the same on Nomad Sculpt. It has a similar mask tool. So now that I've frozen that, if I go down here and I want to so again, this is voxel and these are surface tools. So I want to go back and say build. So I guess it's not going to do anything for the, okay. Well, that's definitely not what I expected. Did I not freeze? Did I have to select freeze on them? Freeze, oh, freeze mask to layer, pick apply freeze selection. Welcome to the dialog box hell that is 3D Coat right now. All right, let's see here, wet clay. No, I just lost my freeze. I am apparently insane with my understanding of how freeze works. Okay. In the regular app, I am pretty sure that freeze works like I was hoping to show you, where you select an area and you freeze it and then it won't be modified. I'm not sure that's how that works in this version. Or if it does, maybe it doesn't. Oh, that was surface. That's why. Okay. Is there a freeze under voxel? There is not. So if I translated this to surface, then, and I bet you that dialog box that popped up was trying to tell me that I couldn't freeze a voxel surface. So now, since I'm in surface mode, if I try to draw on something, yeah, it won't let me manipulate it. Okay. The other ones to know about, interesting. I will have to try the close holes. I've never seen that before. There's so many powerful tools in here. I don't know them all, and I've spent a lot of time using this app. I'll have to try the close hole. Yeah, that'll be fascinating to try this. Okay, so the other one I was looking for was hide. I spend a lot of time looking for these features in this tool list here. Maybe it's voxel hide. I know it is. So now let's go back here and Fox hide. So this allows you, if you're like working on a fursuit head mouth, like, okay, so for example, you can see now that we've uncovered this, there's a proper bust in here, or there was a proper bust in there. Yeah, so you can see the nose. So this fursuit has constructed of multiple different things, which is fine. Anyways, to undo the freeze, there's a freeze menu up here, and I guess I just wanted to turn freezing off. And I think the same thing for the geometry here, unhide all. We'll unhide everything. Okay, so I'm calling that the first video for the very basics of like what is 3D Coat, how do you use it. Let's see if there's anything else I really need to touch on in here. I don't think so. We'll get into some of the more advanced tools later.